Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, June 24th. So, halfway through the week, we've got a couple days left. Clearly, today was risk off. Markets take a well needed breather, I would say. So we got a dip in the market. Is it a buyable dip? Well, you know, whenever a dip occurs, I always laugh when I see people in financial media talk about, hey, if I could only get a dip, I would love to put some money to work. Well, there's always a reason. Well, I don't want to say there's always, but for something like this, right, with the markets down, where did SPY finish for the day? SPY finished down about 2.5% on the day. IWM lagged, down 3.2% for the day, and the Qs were also down 2% for the day. So, a healthy sell-off day. And usually when something like this happens, there's a reason for it, right? Again, people come back to like, oh, geez, if I could always get a dip, I would love to buy it. Well, there's some news on the tape. We're starting to see the COVID cases continue to increase in various different states. And really, what I think is making people nervous is the hospitalization capacity. I just read a headline just a second ago on, where is it? Houston, I believe. Houston, there is a problem. Houston on pace to exceed intensive care capacity by tomorrow. So, there's definitely some issues here, and we could talk about this for 15 minutes. I'll talk about it briefly. Maybe there's a silver lining to this. I mean, of course, we don't want to see people get sick, especially going to intensive care. And I talked about this last week when these states were in when the rate of cases were increasing. A lot of people on Twitter were coming at me saying, "What are you doing, tweeting these out? It doesn't matter. It's the hospitalizations." Well, you have to kind of think logically, right? When you first get the coronavirus, you don't immediately go to the hospital. You probably are at home for a few days and try to get over it, and you don't go to the hospital unless you need to go to the hospital. So what I'm getting at is there's a lag between that. And there's a lag between that, and then unfortunately, there's the other lag is between hospitalizations and deaths, and hopefully that doesn't happen. The only silver lining that I could really think about with this is I really don't understand. Like half these places, they weren't even telling people to wear masks. Somehow that's gotten like political, which doesn't make any sense to me. Caesars today, like casinos were opened, and they weren't telling people to wear masks either. I just don't. It's like it's unbelievable to think about this in terms of like safety. And I get it, in the city that I live, people after a couple weeks, like once they started phase two, people are out and in bars, of course outside, but not wearing like, oh, it's over with. It's not. It's like, what are you guys doing? Like, what are you thinking? And I get it. If I was young and in my 20s, I would be wanting to go out and have a good time and be over it as well. But this is a thing that like is a coordinated effort. And if you look at it kind of is a little bit sad to me that this is happening when many other countries have gotten over this and are behind it because they're being a bit more responsible. So again, if you don't like that, you could not listen to me anymore. But it is what it is, and if you're trading and investing, like these are things that you have to look at because this is when businesses shut because of this. They're not going to make revenues. They don't make revenues, their profits go down. They don't make that's going to affect their business. Their stock price is going to go down. So, we kind of have to talk about this, right? We heard about Apple closing more stores in Houston. Again, I'm not concerned about Apple. Apple will do fine. They have cash, but you have to look at all these smaller businesses and how that's going to be effective. So the fact, like I heard, like finally, they're talking about in some of these states, like North Carolina said today that they're going to. I think they're in the middle of phase two. They're going to stick in phase two, and they're now saying people should wear masks. Again, it blows my mind. I mean, this is something now that it's really, to me, it's pretty easy to I've talked about before, and I've said this in previous videos. I commute into New York City every day, and I wear a mask, and you just feel you're just get into a habit of it after a while. It's just like bringing your wallet and your keys to work. Now you wear a mask. I mean, it's really not that should not be that big of a problem. I don't know why people have to be so defiant. The other thing I would say with some of these countries in Asia, they've been through this before, right? So they've been through SARS and a couple of the other places. Maybe that this is a lesson that people have to learn to like be coordinated for the greater good. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of a silver lining for this. Let's get back to the market for a minute. Again, if you kind of have to have a view about these things, and that kind of goes into helps you determine how you're going to take risk and so forth. The other thing that I keep hearing about is, well, there's bad market breadth, and this is the first time like since Nasdaq has been outperforming this much. I mean, this, like, I don't understand how these guys who are tweeting this stuff out, I won't mention any Twitter handles, but are they living in a bubble? Are they, because, you can't have, if these cases continue to increase, right, it's going to impact a lot of it's going to impact banks, right, who are lending to small businesses. Small businesses are going to have a more difficult time with this. If this if states have to take a step back, like some of them are having, some small businesses just some of them are not going to make it. Right? I've talked about that before as well. I talked about how, uh, over the weekend I was talking about my experiences in New York City, how there's hardly anybody in the financial district around. So, how are these coffee shops going to make it that are not a Starbucks? It's really sad when you think about it. So, yes, companies that have credit lines with banks, it's not good for banks. Banks are going to underperform. Of course, travel companies are going to underperform, right? They're talking about now quarantining in New York City because for people that are coming in from some of the states that are doing that. So people are not going to fly. That means airlines are going to go, our airlines are already in a bunch of trouble. So you go back to my comment about market breadth. I don't know how you can't figure that out when people are like, "Oh, this is the biggest time since Nasdaq has outperformed like the S&P or small caps." Well, think about it for about all of 30 seconds, and I think you'll be able to figure it out. Versus a company that's like Shopify. It is what it is. Shopify is expensive. FSLY is expensive, right? The valuations are really high, but these types of companies are going to fare better because if people stay at home or a Zoom video is up 1.2%. Like, does that not make sense to people who are talking about how market breadth is? I mean, and they not like from this planet? Do they not know that there's a virus going on? So I don't. These things they blow my mind. Oh, look at the market breadth, and how is you know these tech companies going up and everything else is not going up. Well, think about it for all of 2 seconds. I said 30 seconds, but really, I mean, people are going to continue to have to do video conferences for a longer and longer time the more that this coronavirus is present. I keep hearing that from a couple of my friends where first they were talking about the fall returning to work. Now they're talking about the wintertime returning or I heard recently the wintertime returning to work in person. Now I've heard past that. I've heard some people talk about 2022 returning to work. So you don't think that that's going to affect things and why some companies are going to drastically separate from another? If people are staying at home and not going out, not traveling, not spending, on things like coffee in the morning or lunches or going out to eat, so we're going to have that separation for as long as this goes on, in my opinion. So is it alarming how far some tech companies are going to get away, ahead of some of these other areas of the market? Yeah, it's a little bit alarming, but I mean, that's a situation that we're dealing with, and it could, if this really gets Because my belief is that if you wear a mask, it's not 100%, right? We know that. I'm not a doctor, but it's pretty much common sense. If you put something over your face and you sneeze, you're not going to, there's a better chance that you're not going to get someone sick. Or if you're coughing, it's going to block some of the germs. Again, this is basic, straight up common sense. So hopefully, these places that are experiencing this, I'm just hearing, I've been reading the headlines today that they are saying that you should wear a mask. It amazes me that this has not been going on for weeks. But so let's talk a little bit more about the market for the day. We'll talk about support and resistance levels. So that's my rant. Again, I usually give you a good rant basically every day about what's going on. All in all, the market really hasn't gone anywhere on the daily chart. Right, we're basically back to where we were about a week ago. Even though there was very good selling pressure on the market today, I'm hearing like it was like a 90% down day. We did slice through this value area that we talked about, the 1 hour value area. How we could not get through resistance. That was a great place to kind of take off some risk. Even more so, hindsight 2020 glasses on. Absolutely, that was a great place. And that's why the value areas are so important and give you a great roadmap of what you should be kind of doing and thinking about things in terms of risk reward. Now, we said yesterday, hey, you could leave some things on to see if we could possibly take this version point of control out, but that's a great place to slim down some things. So where are we now? Well, we're kind of, and this was a question we did a member Q&A today at 1 o'clock. We're basically in nowheresville. We don't really have a lot of support in here, and now what was support becomes resistance. So we could rally back into this thing in the overnight market. Who knows? Because again, you kind of have to go back to, well, the Fed is still supporting this market, and they're going to need to have to for as long as this happens. So there's nothing really here, in terms of support. I would say that we could move down here. Also, just like we could rally overnight. We could also. It wouldn't surprise me if we fell down here a bit. And if we look at the Qs, which again we know have been holding up better, and very logically they should be. This is in the middle of the value area. So this did fall into value. Again, a stronger picture here with the Qs. 245.45 is going to be your resistance, and you've got support down here at 240.67. IWM, the weaker of the three, was down 3.2% for the day, and still has support in here, but all in all, not looking wonderful. So we'll see where the week takes us. I do think that if we stop, if somehow these cases start to go back the other way, if people are starting to take some precautions, some of these names, these growth names, look like they want to go higher, right? You could see by just like any time that there's a positive headline, things like Shopify, and by the way, this Fastly, which just is a good example, finished green on the day. So I think people want to continue to buy these things. Shopify only finished down 1.5% for the day, and you can kind of go through some more names. Call activity, we did see some dip buying in things like Las Vegas Sands, even though you can kind of see that this has broken its trend line. So I did not take that. They went out to December, so it could be a nice little dip buy, but it doesn't. Things have to line up for me on multiple multiple reasons. Just because I see call buying in something, it doesn't mean I'm going to buy it. And I think this thing has fallen a little bit too far. I think the airlines, if we look at this group, I think these can continue to kind of fall further, maybe back down to the top of value or back down to this 20-day moving average. Again, I think with all these places, Florida, Texas, California, these are places people travel to. People are not going to travel, in my opinion, with this stuff going on. They're going to make other plans. They're going to go on the road. I don't know, like rent a Winnebago or something, or buy a Winnebago. So that's the story with that. What else do we see in terms of call activity? There's a few other things that we saw today. As I mentioned yesterday, A lot of all that short-term momentum call buying from yesterday, yeah, will probably all expire worthless. As I said, this is not smart flow. This is people just chasing price. Um, what else did I see later in the day? Yeah, we did see some of that Fastly stuff. Nike will have earnings tomorrow after the close, I believe. Yeah, not a ton of call act. Pins was one name. Pins is not a name that I really trade that much, so I did not do anything with that. But a couple other names like so. I re-added some XBI. XBI was a real nice trade that we put on last Friday. I took that trade off yesterday. Into the weakness today, I added back some biotech because I think the breakout is intact there. So I'm taking a chance at on a little bit of a dip today in a strong area. A few other areas that I thought were interesting was this NTES. Held up pretty well, actually finished in the green. I would also pay attention to some of the Chinese internet names, right? I think they kind of got caught up in some. Oh yeah, there was one other trade, but yeah, this NTS I remain long. Really nice recovery from starting green, then red, then back to green. Baba is a name that we keep seeing some call activity in. So just an inside day. So this is the stuff, right? Baba doesn't do business in Texas or Florida, places like that. It's a Chinese internet, so call buying in this name, and I did take this trade. So here's my trade blotter for the day. I did finish in the red for the day, even though I had been wearing some IWM puts for about a week, which basically, I thought might go out worthless, but I was able to take a couple targets in those today because IWM was off decently. By the way, a whole bunch of problems with E-Trade again. These systems just cannot take this volatility. Uh, I thought, E-Trade, I could even see prices for stocks. Those froze. I haven't seen that before from E-Trade before. Really, negative on that side. I took a couple stops. I tried some things this today, thinking that the 1 hour value area might hold. Right? I've done this before and kind of got caught with this, but I thought, hey, we might have a chance to kind of hold and bounce. No bounce. So things like Lulu I tried today. I like buying Lulu on the dip. It did come back from the lows, but kind of uncertain, just like with the S&P. I would like to see this get back above 298, and I will try it again. Might be an overnight trade to have on for Nike, in case Nike does have some good numbers, but I would like to see it get back above 298. So stopped out of some day trades early on in the day, and then rallied back with things like XBI and Home Depot as well. I think that's a good name to buy. I generally tend to migrate towards quality names when we have a little bit of a dip or risk off day, and that's kind of what I did today. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.